Nanonga katwae dagama Leo Nupolu Johnson. Maranga ba moy ba sha. Aba moy kuiwochu. Banve kutanga kugana kuva kuhiwo ngaka o de tanga de gana de vaku hiwo ngaka so maranga ba moy aga klave banwe ngava moy kuiwochu aga kwaku kele kwaku ngaka. I sit before you today in fulfillment of a sacred duty in accordance with the reality of a new nation's creed. One that cuts deep into the fabric of why we should even be called a nation. Every time I walk down the streets of Monrovia, watch events in Liberia on social media, I cannot help thinking that we now have a new creed for our nation. It is no longer those famous words of the Pledge of Allegiance that was drilled into our heads from kindergarten through high school. One nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Fellow Liberians, the reality is we now have a new creed, and here it is. In the hands of Zogos, the future of our nation lies. And their plight is the greatest injustice ever faced by this nation. But our anger and outrage must not be directed at them. We must hold accountable those that committed the avoidable atrocity of turning babies into killing machines. We must unite against those that are resolved to benefit from the devastation and the calamity we now face in the name of politics. Those that are resolved on benefiting from the pain, the suffering, and destruction of our young people by turning them into militants so that they too can eventually become Zogos. Fellow Liberians, this is the reality of the state. The future is Zogo. Fellow Liberians, this is the reality of the state. But we have a choice. We can either ignore it or suffer the consequences that we now know so well because no one will be spared. Or we can acknowledge it, invoke the urgency of the moment, and rally our nation to see them for the victims that they are and offer them the support they need. At this point, I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. George Manawia for fulfilling his constitutional responsibility as president and father of our nation through his recent State of the Nation address in accordance with Article 58 of the Constitution of Liberia, covering the economic condition of the nation, including expenditure and income. I also want to congratulate the president on the many achievements highlighted in his message as he sought to give an account of his stewardship of the nation. Your Excellency, in my State of the Reality address, I would like to draw your attention to a number of issues that the nation still has no clear direction about. Let me begin with economic justice. Mr. President, at your historic inauguration in January 2018, you made an emphatic commitment, and I quote, "We cannot remain spectators in our own economy. My government will prioritize the interests of Liberian-owned businesses and offer programs to help them become more competitive and offer services that international investors seek as partners." 4 years later, our people do not even have spectator status in their own economy, Mr. President. 4 years later, our people live on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of economic wealth in the hands of few powerful elites. 4 years later, Mr. President, people still languish in the corners of the Liberian society and find themselves treated as strangers in their own land. And so, I've come here today to demonstrate a shameful condition that unless we pursue economic justice, your efforts are all in vain. Mr. President, despite the economic strides your government has made as reported in your message, the real entrepreneurs on whose shoulders this country survives are not even considered in our economic calculations. Our people selling in Douala, Red Light, Waterside, Town, where 75% of Liberians go to transact business, have not even received an invitation to the game. How can they become players when they have not even achieved spectator status? Mr. President, you have made some tremendous strides in building respectable market structures to restore the dignity of our people. But they too want to look at the economic report and numbers being submitted to the IMF and the World Bank and see the acknowledgement of their contributions to our economy at the very top of the list because they contribute the most. We can no longer consider these markets outliers in our economy, Mr. President. In fact, they are the foundation of our economy. If it wasn't for these markets and the resilience of our entrepreneurs doing business in them, there will be no economy to begin with. Instead of ignoring them, let us work with them, organize the markets, capture and reflect their contributions. This will at least give them spectator status. Then we can move closer to your dream of elevating their importance for support from government and international players who will come to the realization that their investments must be directed to where it will yield the most results, and that is to the people on whose shoulders the economy relies. This, Mr. President, is the pathway to not just making our people players in their economy, but coaches in growing the economy as well. Our people have stood the test of time despite everything they've been through, and they refuse to accept that the bank of economic justice is bankrupt. Seize the opportunity now, Mr. President. It will be fatal to ignore the urgency of the moment. I also want to applaud your bold effort in making post-secondary education free at all public universities. A step which I believe came from a place of genuine passion against the historical marginalization of majority of our people, where they were denied access to education. But the question that lingers on my mind is this: what good is it accessing an education system that was designed to eradicate the original cultures, value systems, and productivity of our society, and replace it with one that was believed to be superior only because it came from the West? We have an education system that teaches us that we are inferior and must try to be like everyone else except ourselves. Fellow Liberians, it was in 1881 that Dr. Edward Wilmot Blyden, who was at the time president of Liberia College, laid out an educational program for the African-centered instruction of Liberian students and for youth throughout the African continent. He wrote, spoke, preached that the ingredients of genuine and permanent progress in Liberia and the rest of Africa are found in the teaching of our students about the true history and culture of our people and their contributions to the world civilizations. Instead, we find ourselves teaching our children to condemn their cultures and who they are because others are better than them. Inspired by these thoughts, here are a few policy proposals for the way forward, Mr. President. That all public universities be transformed into applied universities or colleges in response to a practical vision for economic growth. Our universities should be the driving force and engine for economic growth and productivity, not a liability that is the single major contributor to unemployment and economic decay. That is the only way we will be able to control our natural resources, because when we have mathematicians, chemists, engineers, and experts skilled in applied science, mining, manufacturing, and building industries, we will not need the IMF predicting and detecting our growth. Instead, we will be directing the IMF on how they can participate in our progress. Liberia today resembles what Germany looked like in 1945 after World War II. 1.5 million prisoners of war, 1 million wounded German soldiers, millions of refugees and displaced persons of many different nationalities, no working transport or communication services, industry and agriculture at a standstill, scarcity of food and the risks of starvation and epidemics of diseases were the order of the day. As a result, Germany built an education system rooted in applied learning and education in direct response to their reality. It is that system that their country thrives on today. Their education system was built as a response to Germany's problems. In contrast to Liberia, where we are still hanging on to the relic of the miseducation sold to us through Western education as highlighted by Dr. Blyden. Fellow Liberians, 51% of the German workforce are trained through applied and technical colleges and universities. Thus, Germany is one of the world's strongest economies today and have one of the lowest youth unemployment rates in the world. Fellow Liberians, we have an agricultural college but cannot figure out how to grow rice to meet our country's demands. We have a business school but must rely on our mothers in the local markets to keep the country's economy afloat. We do not need more politicians and sociologists. Instead, our country is dying for plumbers, technicians, carpenters, farmers, entrepreneurs, electricians, and the list goes on. For example, if a young person is smart in mathematics in Liberia, your future is doomed if you do not travel outside of Liberia. Your highest accomplishment might be a school teacher that finds themselves or finds delight in failing students to collect bribes or sex for grades. If we cannot direct the education of our population to serve the interests and needs of our nation, then we are of no use to ourselves. My second recommendation is that all 16 languages should be taught in Liberian schools from kindergarten to grade 6. Liberia needs to develop a curriculum that includes and values our languages and cultures as an integral part of our identity. There is no reason why, Mr. President, in this enlightened age, Liberians are taught to value and celebrate everyone else except themselves. Up until now, Liberian education and social realities consist of alien cultural values and notions of inferiority that are taught to students, who in turn teach it to their children and grandchildren, and the cycle continues. In the words of Kim Il-sung, president of North Korea, they were able to quickly jump ahead in their nuclear missile technology program by using indigenous knowledge. Fellow Liberians, our indigenous knowledge and identity is buried deep in the structure of our languages. If we can find a way to develop a French curriculum and find enough French teachers to be mandatorily taught in our schools, there is no reason why we cannot teach our languages in our schools. Now you might wonder, how is that even possible? Since we don't have our languages developed in written structures and formats. To that I say, the same way we begin teaching our children the English language in kindergarten by making them recite sentences orally. If we can teach them ABC orally, we can teach them Pele or any of our languages orally. You see, literacy is not education, my friends. You can be literate and very uneducated, and vice versa. It is time to value the sophistication of our languages. They do not need to be written as a prerequisite. Progress means empowering all schools in a county like Lofa County to teach all 5 dominant languages, Loma, Pele, Kisi, Bandi, and Mandingo. This can be done by ensuring every child is required to learn at least one of those languages by the time they are in grade 6. If they can learn more than one in the process, even better. Unlocking our identity code through our languages and cultures will not only foster unity, it will enable us to harness the power that still resides within the core of our ancient cultural ideals and philosophical doctrines that built the foundations of human civilizations. Today, many Liberians are pondering an important question. Why is Liberia not developing and harnessing the tremendous sources of innovation and indigenous knowledge that reside within the Liberian people? Instead, surrendering our scarce resources to foreign knowledge that has proven detrimental to our culture and environment over the years. In my attempt to answer this complicated question, here is what I say. It goes back to historical events of 1822 when repatriated Africans from America arrived on the shores of Liberia. According to renowned Liberian educator Dr. Mary Antoinette Brown Sherman in 1989, the repatriated Africans were instilled with the idea that they were on a Christianizing, civilizing mission. They were led to believe that they were on a mission to spread the light of the gospel and of civilization to the uncivilized Africans they met in Liberia. This was their reliance for creating a horrendous system that isolated indigenous Liberian children from their parents for the purpose of instruction, lest they become corrupted. Indigenous Liberians fought to preserve their cultures and societies by placing their young ones into the Poro and Sende society in response to this atrocity. Despite these efforts, the ruling class in Liberia perpetuated discriminatory practices for over 100 years against the Liberian masses based upon a misguided, false notion of superiority as was practiced on the slave plantations emanating from Western colonialism. As the African proverb says, the lion continues to rule the forest because baby lions are taught that it is their birthright. So if we Liberians believe we are inferior by virtue of our culture and languages, how can we expect respect from other nations? It is unimaginable that in the 21st century, Liberia's education system does not value the cultural and social experiences of its indigenous populations. Our education system fails miserably to teach the historical activities and cultural contributions of our people prior to European and American contact. Instead, we champion the false narrative that our civilization began with the contact with those from America and Europe. To our leaders in the opposition, you can begin to lead by example by doing the practical things that matter. President Weah fulfilled his duty by giving account of the state of the nation and its economy. We can debate and criticize his account, but we are yet to see audited financial reports from your institutions since I was born. It is a legal requirement under our election laws. So how can you expect to adequately manage the resources of our nation when you cannot demonstrate seeing now? There's a universal principle that if you want to know whether an institution is functioning well, dive into the financials. You have an opportunity to give us an opportunity to deepen the vision for where Liberia can go so our people can choose from the field of adequate and competent competition. Now your head might be spinning and thinking, how will we do all this when our budget is a meager 500 to 600 million? It is a known fact that our political governance systems only know so well how to spend money from everybody else, but do poorly in generating their own. That is why my reflections create a pathway to raise at least $100 million immediately to bring some policy points to fruition. I'm going to start with dual citizenship. The dual citizenship crisis is a solution and a gift rather than a problem. It is not and must not be a political undertaking. It is and has always been an economic driver waiting to be unleashed. I'll say to you today To him or her whom much is given, much is required. Those who have been fortunate to go into countries in the diaspora, become successful, and most of the time had no choice but to take on citizenship of other countries, but yet yearning to maintain their Liberian identity. This is an opportunity to repeat and reiterate to them that your natural born Liberian citizenship is God-given and inalienable, and nobody should ever be able to take it away. However, the privilege to hold another passport, in addition, is not afforded and accorded to all Liberians. So you must be able to account for that privilege. What is wrong with implementing an economic policy of instituting a dual citizenship tax? That you can be able to account for your privilege so that Liberians in Liberia don't have to feel cheated because you have an opportunity and access that they don't have, but they can feel grateful that you are willing to contribute your account of your privilege to the cause of nation building. What is wrong with requiring Liberians with dual citizenship owning real estate or real property or asset in Liberia no less than $5,000 in value, so that we all can put our money where our mouth is, so that we all can have an organized way of contributing to the future of the nation through nation building? Another thing I will look at is education reform and scholarships. Instead of sending children overseas at the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars to be educated in ways that leave them stranded when they return, because what Liberia needs is not a research-based Western education. No, we are far removed from that reality. We need a practical form of education, as I have indicated, rooted in our cultures, rooted in our challenges, as a direct response to where we should go as a nation. Instead, we should be facilitating that support from international partners in millions of dollars to educational reforms and building of institutions that are responsive to our needs. What is wrong with telling our friends from China, telling our friends from the United States, telling our friends from the European Union that instead of spending hundreds of millions to take hundreds of students of Liberians to your countries to be educated in your ideals and understanding of the world, let us build a state-of-the-art applied and technical university in Liberia. Let us transform UL so that we can educate our own by our own. By doing that, we don't need to go and look for PhDs to be professors. We can tap into what is called industry-based professors. People in Liberia who have earned their badges of honor by their expertise and wealth of experience and knowledge in carpentry, in agriculture, in plumbing, in engineering. They do not need to have a PhD in research. They can demonstrate their practical knowledge and ability that can be equivalent to become an industry-based professors, which will see us rely on our own innovation to educate our children and not depend on our children going to China to learn how to build Chinese-style buildings. That is the reason why we wonder in Liberia how we cannot figure out how to design a building that takes advantage of the natural sunlight so no one needs to turn on a light bulb before 5 p.m. Why can we not ask for those support to transform or to reform our education system and transform public universities into applied technical institutions that will become not only the economic driver of our economy, but will generate economic dividends by leveraging our indigenous knowledge, where we are not only looking for PhDs, but we are also now looking for the people who have built and kept our country surviving by their expertise, innovation, and resilience. My friends, robust development of the nonprofit sector and social enterprise is another cardinal piece to the future of our young people. The business of government being the major source of job creation or reliance on big corporations to support the unemployment crisis is a relic of the past. Instead, we should be creating an autonomous nonprofit regulatory agency that will ensure international NGOs operating in Liberia are in sync with government's priorities of national development and are paying appropriate regulatory fees that can be used to foster training and the capacity building of local organizations to compete in the international market of multi-million-dollar grants. Our friends who bring international NGOs to Liberia have the capacity and have the finances. We haven't been able to organize them to contribute to the development of our own social enterprise and non-for-profit sector. They have the resources. Let's organize them to know that we don't always want to rely on you coming from overseas. We want to build our own capacity. Countries like Canada and the United States have done it well. You need to apply to have a 501c3 status, but beyond that, there are other requirements you must meet. How can we translate their direct contributions to our national agenda for development, not based on what they think, but based on what we develop and ask them to participate in? If a local youth group in Nigeria can bring Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook to Lagos and attract major investments, our young people in Liberia can do the exact same. They only need us to facilitate the pathways and organize the resources that they need. Why are we not confronting the Zogo crisis like we should? A national policy that mobilizes all sectors to take on Liberia's most pressing challenge, the Zogo crisis. A policy that will determine whether we survive as a nation or not. There is no reason why we cannot work with churches and religious institutions in Liberia to include the building of rehabilitation centers and mental health training as part of their church buildings and establishments. There is no reason why we cannot mobilize our resources to make the rehabilitation and support of our brothers and sisters and reintegration into society priority number one, because it is the greatest threat to our survival as a nation. In the words of Dr. King, the church must be reminded that it is not the master or servant of the state, but rather the conscience of the state. If the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal in directing the future of the nation, it will become an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority. Let's talk about the rule of law and governance. My friends, how can we expect to get good governance out of a constitution that we adopted that is one of the most corrupt documents today that exists and defines our nation's governance? The Constitution of Liberia is corrupt. It was designed to marginalize the masses of our population. And in 1986, instead of seizing an opportunity for genuine reform, it was taken by the then military government and turned into a machine through which they can implement their atrocities. Don't take my word for it. Open the Constitution to Article 97. Article 97 says that no members of the military regime or the military that took over in a bloody coup, that no member of the PRC, which was the People's Redemption Council, shall ever be prosecuted for crimes that they were about to commit and were committing by any court of jurisdiction in or outside of Liberia. It's still in your constitution today. I will not go into depth on that. Please read your constitution. My friends, brothers and sisters, just as we chose to fall behind, we can also choose to surge forward. Just as we are knowledgeable of the problems, we are also knowledgeable of the solutions. All it takes is the courage to make the right decisions. We need Liberian minds creating Liberian solutions to Liberian problems within the parameters of who we are, each one of us. All institutions must be mobilized to do their part within their means. The gold, the diamonds, the rubber, the iron ore, and natural resources are no longer our greatest asset and cannot deliver us from this mess. Our greatest asset as a nation remains our young people. Without them, there's no country, there's no future. Thus, all of our natural resources shall become irrelevant. That is why we must pay attention, because the future of Liberia right now is Zogo. Failure to change this trajectory We are all doomed as we are beginning to see it unravel. In the Pele language, there is a parable that says, it is your cutlass throwing hands that the town people can see before they call cool onto your farm. So we want to see your collect throwing hands, everybody, as Liberians. Where is your place within our society? Because it is that we allow the rally to happen, because Liberians are leading. It is that will allow us to rise from the ashes of decay. It is that will allow us to know that God has endowed us and blessed us with everything we need to turn our country into what it should be. But we have been misled, miseducated, and deceived to turn to everything else except the wealth of talents and resources that we have. I urge you today, my fellow Liberians, to look no further for our solutions, because it is right under our feet. It begins with us tapping into the wealth and power of our indigenous knowledge. No, our PhD and master degrees sitting in Monrovia are not the only educated people. Some of the most educated people are our village chiefs and elders who do not speak, read, or write a word of English, but are by far more educated and sophisticated. Ask yourself, why is the poor and ascended society so organized and has lasted the test of times? It survived wars. It survived suppression for over 100 years. It survived everything thrown at it and still remain in order. Ask yourself why our villages and towns are not littered with garbage and feces. Ask yourself why the quality of air that flows in our villages and towns are superior in quality compared to what we breathe in Monrovia. Ask yourself why our villages and towns are not suffering from overcrowdedness, why they understand how to expand in an orderly fashion compared to the chaos that is unfolding in Monrovia. It has to be education. It has to be sophistication. So we must move from the place of thinking that education is literacy in English or French. No, education is not literacy. Education is the ability to acquire, develop knowledge, and implement it in the ways for which it was acquired. And that, my friends, we have it. We don't need no expert from anywhere. We don't need the IMF to tell us what we need to do to grow the economy. We have people in Liberia. We don't need no complicated graph as examples from Western economies, because we are different. Our story is different. Our fundamentals are different. We need our people in red light market. We need to organize our people in red light, in Douala, in Waterside, to start to understand the trajectory and of the things that they do that have kept red light market continuously expanding despite the poverty, that have kept children in universities and colleges and in schools that are very expensive despite the enormous poverty, that has helped a local market woman to educate 7 children consistently from a table market. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is now. It is Zogo. We can change it, we can accept it, we can acknowledge it, or we can ignore it at our own detriment and be doomed. I want to thank you for listening to me. God bless us all. God bless Liberia.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Leo Johnson, for a powerful speech, reality of the nation address, he called it. And we'll take a short break. When we come back, I have a few questions for Leo on the address, the reality of the state address that he gave. Stay tuned, we will be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Folks, thank you, and we are back with you on the Liberian Dream. The program you are watching is the Liberian Dream with Mr. Leo Nupolu Johnson. He is the host of that program. Leo, again, congratulations on this reality of the nation address. You say a lot of things. You made recommendations. And I want to pick your brain a little more so you can have the opportunity to reinforce. First, you started with congratulations to President Weah for fulfilling his constitutional responsibility, telling us the health of our nation, the economy, and in every sector. And then also you talk about his achievements. Why you felt the need to do those things or to talk about those things?
I felt the need to talk about those things because we've come to a place where we've mastered the art of only elevating all of the problems and negatives in our society. And we've done that at the expense of failing to acknowledge that even when something good happens, we should not say it because we think if we admit it, then we are elevating the other person rather than having a balanced approach of acknowledging where there have been progress and then taking down where there haven't been. So I would tell you, say all you want to say about President Weah. He's built respectable markets that we've seen. Say all you want to say about President Weah. He's elevated the conversation about dual citizenship in Liberia like no president has ever done before him. You can disagree with his position or approach. That's a different argument. Say what you want to say about President Weah. He's managed to maintain the peace. The same credit we give to Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf for maintaining the peace when she was president. So we can debate the merits, but let's not only elevate that. Let's elevate the positives too, because some of that could inspire other Liberians to double down and figure out ways they can boost those sectors.
Yeah, and talking about maintaining the peace, Ellen maintained the peace with the help of United Nations peacekeeping troops in Liberia. President Weah is doing it with Liberian security forces, so he should be given credit for that. I think that is a water point there. But in your reality of the state address, you talk about the future of Liberia. You fear is Zogos. So talk to me briefly about that. Why are you seeing Liberia future that way?
Because there is a consistency in the explosion of the population of West Point. There is consistency in the explosion of the populations that are at the bottom of our society, not by their own making. And as long as, I don't need to tell you, even villages now got Zogos in Liberia. Before, it used to be thought that it was an urban thing, when you go to major cities. Right. Now, even villages, and I can promise you, as long as that population continues to increase, the future is headed in that direction, because guess what? They are having the most impact on our day-to-day. They are the reason why nobody wants to walk in certain corners now after 6 p.m. They are the reasons why people are putting their cell phones in their bras and in their pens. Now we're hiding it. They are the reason why people are afraid when they have a little bit of money on them, they have to tackle it down. They are the reason why certain part of our country is now a no-go zone. Even the police is afraid to go there. But Anthony, let me give you a stark reminder. They are the reason why 29 of our citizens died in cold blood a few days ago. And if that is not an indicator, and guess what? These slums, where Nikuta and West Point is located, less than 10 kilometers from the executive mansion. Exactly. Less than 10 kilometers from the Capitol building. Now, if these places can be like that, imagine what happens in Banga, in Kakata, in the places that we don't see on the media. And that is why I argue, unless we can reverse that trajectory. Let me remind you, back in the 70s, when the population in West Point and Nikutan was growing, nobody paid attention. When those slums were exploding because more and more people were finding themselves in poverty. Guess where we are today now? They are what they are today because we refuse at the time to pay attention. And they significantly contributed to the Civil War because they were desperate young men and women that had nothing else to do and they had no choice but to do what they did. So if we don't change that trajectory, I'm sorry. The reality is the future of the nation is Zogo.
Leo, you are sounding like we are where we were when we got plunged into war. Is that what I'm hearing?
We are laying the recipe for the next Civil War. And I know people may think I'm harsh, but I'll tell you this today. A man who's down fears no fall. If our people get to a place of absolute dissolution and desperation, and where they think anything else is better, if people start to tell you like the Walton said we're even better than now, if you start to hear people tell you that, that means they are telling you, I will not hesitate being in a war situation and being in a condition I am in now. What stops somebody, Anthony, from showing up in the slum and providing enough drugs and marijuana for a bunch of Zogos and giving them weapons and say, go out, kill anybody you meet, take whatever you can take for free? They are doing it now on their own free volition, without anyone's incentive, without any fear, without even the weapons. So imagine and don't get me wrong, there are still bad people in our society. There are still people who are willing to seize power at any cost because of their selfish greed, and they will use whatever it takes and justify it.
You talk about education in your reality of the state address. And talking about that, you emphasize the need for our indigenous technology, I believe that's how you pull it, to be captured and to be used. You cited an example about one Asian country that went to the indigenous. They where they got ideas from, and they were able to change their country. This is not my first time hearing you saying this. Why are you not stopping when nobody is paying attention to you?
I will not stop, Anthony, because everything else has failed. Everything else that we're still trying has been tried. It's not like we're in a new age where all of a sudden there's something innovative. And number two, the things we're trying now were built on falsehood. They were built on deception. It was, the idea was to turn Liberia, the country called Liberia, into Little America. That was we read it in books. In fact, it was taught to us that this is Little America. I'm sorry. There is no second America. America is America. Liberia is Liberia. So that false narrative laid the basis for everything else that evolved. That's why you see we want to build houses like America. That's why we want to name our streets like America. That's why we want to dress in cheap clothing that destroys the environment like America, compared to the rich cultural cotton that our old people will make.
But what's wrong with that, Leo? What's wrong with that?
Let me tell you what is wrong with that. It's wrong because it is being done at the detriment of eradicating, of destroying the originality of our cultures. It's being done at the detriment of marginalizing the identity of majority of the people who have always lived here. You're telling them that they're not good enough. Look, let me say something, Anthony. Nothing wrong with enhancing our culture. Nothing wrong with building on our culture. Nothing wrong with confronting some of the issues that are bad in our cultures and reforming them. But Anthony, you cannot replace yourself. You are Anthony here for a reason. And your bad attitudes, you can work on changing them. But guess what? You can wake up one morning and say, I'm no longer Anthony here, a Liberian. I am now King Ilsong
or John Paul.
Or John Paul from somewhere. You're not. You're still Anthony here. Exactly. You're just lying to yourself. And that self-denial has destroyed the fabric of our nation, where I myself sitting here today now, we all have no clue who we really are. We're struggling to nail it down as to who we are in a larger conversation of the global economy.
And talking about that, I'm sure if you might have followed what happened in the House of Representatives recently because of dress code. Exactly. And then I see you in this very French dress code that brought this noise.
Yeah,
it speaks to what you are talking about, right?
Yeah.
If we were not borrowing things from, let's say, the French, say the Americans, we will not have the issue that just took place in the House, and these guys threatened to beat another lawmaker.
And we will not be debating what a proper dress code look like, because we will already know what that looks like culturally for us. And and beyond even that, you have to look at it this way, Anthony. Liberia is the only now African country that I know where somebody can become president without being able to speak any of the languages or know any in the entire country. I don't know of any other African. You can correct me. I may be wrong. That's why I'm saying I may be wrong. But even if that was the case, it just tells you, how can you govern a country that you cannot even identify culturally with any of the populations in the country, and nobody thinks that is important. Right. And that is the reason why I've argued that the Constitution is corrupt.
And that brings me to my next question about our language. Something that you have been talking about. What is the code that you use that everything about all is coded in our language. Our language is our identity.
Our identity code is
Yes, our
inherent in
identity
our
code
language.
is our language. And you went further by saying, what is wrong with us teaching Bassa in Grand Bassa County?
Yep.
So that the children in Grand Bassa County that are born today can not only speak the language, but they can write the language and they can go across our counties.
Yep.
And it's one of the recommendations you also make or making to our government. Why is this so important, Leo?
It's important because guess what? Only a small minority of Liberians, Anthony, will ever travel to America or Europe or anywhere else. The vast majority of Liberians will remain in Liberia. And eroding their identity by thinking they are supposed. We've been trying to teach them English in 1847. Up to 70% of the country still cannot speak it. And there is
I'm still struggling with the English.
Exactly. And there is nothing wrong with learning English. Learn as many languages you want. In fact, it's an advantage to learn English. But never do something at the detriment of who you are. And here is why it is important for our languages. Anthony, they are now going extinct. And guess what? Even Bele. There are very few Bele speakers now in Liberia. The numbers has actually diminished. But guess what? If your identity code is wrapped in your language, Anthony, imagine if you lose it entirely. What are you going to say, Anthony? Who are you? I'm an Englishman? Or are you going to say, Anthony, if you say I am a Bassa man, what if there is no language called Bassa anymore? How do you explain that you are a Bassa man? But two, languages, our languages, you will realize, even the English language, the same, is structured in a way where the order of society is built and embedded in the language. There's a reason why when you use certain English word, they can say you are rude, you insulted someone, right? And there's a reason why when you use certain words, they can say, oh, Anthony is respectful. Guess what? The sentiment is built in the language. The moral order of society is built in the language. So when you lose the language, you lose the entire value of society that has been buried in it for centuries and centuries and move along. You lose the identity, you lose all of the moral codes and the power and innovation and knowledge that's actually built into it. In my language, Pella, they call horse Pella. You know what it means?
No.
Elevated, small. That is the meaning of
That's
house.
the meaning, literally.
And that is the practical sense. You elevate it little by little.
And Leo, you talk about a lot of things. Let me throw my final question on the language. So how can we use our language to gain a competitive edge over, say, our European friends and partners? How can we use that?
I will tell you one. For example, Pele, Bassa, Grebo, Crown, they are spoken up to Tanzania. Here is the lie we've always told ourselves that our language are only spoken by small number of people in Liberia. That is not true. Most of our languages are spoken straight up to Tanzania, number one. Number two, here is what can give us a competitive edge and competitive advantage in using our language. It's not only based on numbers, right? It's based on exporting Liberian culture and Liberian value. You know why all the expats and foreigners go to Liberia despite all of our problems? It's because there's value there. They want something. When you go to Ghana, right? You go to Sierra Leone, other countries. You see when the expats come there, most of them are even to the point where they are speaking the local languages now.
Right.
They're dressing like the local people because they realize for me to function and identify here, guess what that does? When they come back here, they start to promote those cultures. You know what, like Nigerian music now is played in Mexico or Mexican parties, or American parties, or whatever that is. It's because the people who have gone there were forced to experience it. So when they came back, now those cultures have now been elevated to the point where they are also being seen as very important cultures. And some of their values are now being copied in universities and colleges here. Drumming, they hand drumming, we can be playing. We say that song, the dieting we can do. You know that now one of the biggest, most popular instruments now in North America is the small sangma drum. Is being taught at universities now. Everybody is agreeing that it holds the key to conflict resolution. So those are some of the values. The competitive advantages, Anthony, when you can't be bought at home, you'll not be bought abroad. If your people are not able to buy you, who going to buy you abroad?
And Leo, I will tie two questions together here. Can there be this tourism, which is the new sector that's making billions across? Can there be tourism minus culture? That's one. And then you talk about the historical contribution of our forefathers, right? That is not being mentioned. That is not being, their contributions are not being elevated. So talking about culture, how with or without where would tourism be and how can the contribution of our forefathers be elevated to make Liberia the country that we want it to be?
In fact, I will argue that it is primarily because of culture that people go to your country for actual tourism. Why would somebody leave New York to go to Liberia to see the Capitol building that looking cookie on the side, but it's supposed to be the replica of the Capitol building in America, in Washington, D.C.? Why would somebody leave Europe to go look at skyscrapers in Liberia? For what reason? It makes no sense. And the mistake we're making with tourism is don't sell what you don't have, Anthony. That's dishonesty. People talking about Liberia got great, amazing waterfalls and stuff. Let's be honest, that's not entirely true. Because those things you're calling waterfall and stuff, even us in Liberia don't value. It's never been developed. It's never been even considered something important. That is the reason why nobody pays attention to it in the first place. What we need to talk about when we talk about tourism is to sell truly what we have. And let me tell you what we have. We have a checkered history of playing a very significant role on the African continent. And that checkered history comes also with the unfortunate side of how we failed to build on it and to develop it to where it should be. So one of the things we should be telling people, we want you to come to Liberia to see the land of the first return of African Americans and how they got it horribly wrong so that we don't repeat it. Come and see the devastation it left in their wakes. We should also be telling them, come and see the technology of the little round mud hut that 3 generations to 5 generations live in and is still sitting down there. Your concrete house in Monrovia can last 10 years, the foundation start cracking. Come and see a country that is so historical. Come and see the house that we hid Nelson Mandela in for almost 6 months, President Talbot did when he was escaping. Come and see the richness of our people that despite them living in villages, having no access to electricity, having no access to garbage cleaning or whatever that is, their villages are some of the most sanitized places to the point where they can drink natural water from the creek.
And they don't get sick.
And they don't get sick. We drink water in Monrovia, your stomach start running the very next morning. We need to sell our reality and tell people we are here today as a great nation because we took a wrong direction. And these are the factors. We want to be the example of how to not build a nation so that we can consciously. LU supposed to be an educational museum. Nobody's supposed to be sitting out over there. We need to be bringing tourists to show them one of the oldest, highest degree granting institution on the continent of Africa as a museum. The Capitol building is supposed to be a museum. Nobody should be working there. The executive mansion supposed to be a museum to come and show tourists how not to govern a country. The emblem of it. Why are we so fascinated with all things that should become heritage attractions? We're still trying to make it look like it's still relevant in 2022. It is not.
Wow. Leo, we can keep talking, and I can keep asking questions. You talk about this $100 million. And you talk about how that money can be generated. One of the things you mentioned is the dual citizenship tax.
Yep.
You might be making some people in the U.S., you might be paying some people, oh, what? My country?
Yeah.
To maintain my citizenship to my pellet town, my crew town, Leo say I'm going to pay some tax. So explain yourself. Why I shouldn't get mad?
First of all, I'm not asking them to pay money to maintain your Liberian citizenship. It's inalienable. Your natural birthright citizenship should be you didn't decide to be born in Liberia. God made that divine. God did not ask your opinion which country you wanted to be born in. He put you where you were born, right? That is a right. But for you to say you want whole American citizenship on top of it and still have access to everything, we say no. If you want whole your American citizenship and still be here with all, we are asking you to give the accountability of the privilege that you've been afforded. Because guess what? Not all Liberians who are natural born Liberians have that privilege to hold an American passport, even if they dearly wanted to. So now there is an advantage as a Liberian you have over. Number 2, it is a vehicle for nation building, Anthony. We can make all this big move in the diaspora of all of the remittances that we send to Liberia, right? Which is true that we send to Liberia. And then when we try to talk to people to organize it in a way for nation building, we say no. Number 3, Anthony, let's put it this way. We must put our money where our mouths are. The destabilization of Liberia has largely come from the diaspora. The direction of our politics largely is controlled by the power that sits within the diaspora, right? Even CDC. That's in power today. It was from the diaspora.
It was funded here.
It was even funded in the United States to begin with, right?
In Minnesota, where I sit today.
Exactly. So I am saying to you, if you hold that much power over ordinary Liberians on the ground, Anthony, right? By virtue of the opportunity you've gotten. What is wrong, Anthony? For example, I'm just using hypothetical numbers here, right? Nobody take me on it. If you say $200 a year as a dual citizenship tax, not for your Liberian citizenship, but for the privilege of holding another citizenship. And by the way, we'll not be the first people that do it. Other countries already do it. So it's not a rare thing. If we have 500,000 Liberians that hold another passport, right? That's $100 million immediately right there. Then when you do that, then we give people, when people pay taxes, they get benefit. When we do that, we say, let's introduce 2 new seats in the legislature to represent the diaspora, one in the Senate, one in the House of Representatives. Let's grant them the rights to vote at their various embassies overseas, that they can register and vote and determine what happens here. Let's ask them to own real asset in this country, no less than 5,000 United States dollars. You know why? No. Because when you default on your taxes in the United States, what does the government do? What does the IRS come for? Isn't it your assets, including vanishing of your bank accounts? Isn't that what it come for? So what is wrong with Liberia holding you accountable that if you don't pay your taxes? Look, the diaspora could become the first permanent tax-paying base of the Republic of Liberia because it is the Liberian middle class. They can afford.
Before I continue with my question, let's hear this question from our viewer here, James Wright. He said, are there even anything like Liberian Dream? What is that? What it is that an average Liberian wish for or dream of when she thinks of Liberia? So he asking, is there anything called Liberian Dream? Is there a Liberian Dream? So answer that question, because you are running this program called the Liberian Dream.
Indeed, from since I was a little boy, and I've seen it, the Liberian Dream has been that our country will stop facing outward and face inward, to value the true contributions and identity of his people and elevate it for the world to see. That little girl in Joploken, right, that goes to fishing every day, lays the basket and catches enough fish to bring it to the local village market and makes enough money for her younger brother to go to school because the family had to decide one child to go to school because they can only afford one. That old man that wakes up every day, makes that massive farm, and for the last 50 years have not only fed his family equitably, has not only practiced environmental friendly farming, has not only sent all of his children to school as a result. That papi in Banga should be elevated and acknowledged for his contribution to the Liberian dream. And that is the Liberian dream. Our country should stop looking outward. We should stop trying to be everything else. The Liberian dream is when we should stop looking to be everything else except ourselves. The Liberian dream is to embrace ourselves, understand our languages, unlock the code and the power in indigenous knowledge, and use what we've got to solve our problems. We don't need other people things to solve our problems. We can get partners, we can get help from partners, we can get their support, but the Liberian dream is a place where Liberians are detecting, directing, organizing, and determining what happens to Liberia in its true honesty.
Few things you said, because of time, I'm going to throw all on you. On education for recommendation, you talk about reforms and scholarship through the use of what you call industry-based professors. And you went on to say that our young people need us. And you said the solution that we are looking for all in the Western country, those solutions are right on our feet. And you came to say education is not literacy in English and French alone. And finally, you said diamond, gold, rubber, timber, all these things we're reciting all the time, those are not our greatest asset.
No.
Our greatest asset is between the young people of Liberia. Talk to me about that.
Thank you. And this is what I've always said. For our entire history, anybody who became president, the first thing they started to do to know how much revenue does gold generate, does rubber, especially rubber, does rubber generate, to the point where today we're still beating on Firestone because we think we still owe our money we're supposed to go and collect, even though we have signed an agreement with them. What I meant by that is this, Anthony, Singapore, zero natural resources, none whatsoever. You know what they developed their country as a city-state? Human resources, investment in education, in technology, in science, right? Let's move further from there. Anthony, you can raise $1 billion from gold, diamond, timber, rubber, and iron ore. With the neglect of our young people, you know what the money becomes? It becomes a source of conflict like we've seen.
Because in Nigeria with the oil.
In Nigeria with oil, then they fight over it. But I can guarantee you, if God wiped all of those out of Liberia, right? And we focus on developing our human capacity, Anthony, whenever Liberian is able to provide food security for their family, whenever Liberian is industrious enough to build our human capacity that will spark innovation, entrepreneurship, or whatever. Let me tell you what will happen. The people that get a gold endowment will be the one bringing their gold endowment to try and buy your services. That's what Singapore does. Singapore is one of the richest city-states in the world because everybody goes there to buy their services. Let me give you an example. Great Britain. You know, Great Britain got any natural resource, right? But they got some of the greatest diamond and gold reserves in the world. You know what? Because they use their services to rip everybody else up and pack it. It's a small island. Great Britain is one of the smallest countries, a very small island. But yet, the size of the small island became one of the most powerful countries. So I made that statement to say this miseducation, our people always want to go fight over the concession agreements and stuff. Instead of saying, let's appropriate the right investment in education, in youth empowerment, in rehabilitation for unfortunate brothers and sisters, right? In agriculture. And when people talk about agriculture, they quite go to mechanized farming. Liberia does not need mechanized farming. It's a false dream, it's false hope. Mechanized farming is not even environmentally good. The current shifting cultivation that we use, Anthony, is actually more environmentally friendly and can guarantee and achieve more food security than mechanized farming. Mechanized farming is a commercial activity.
I had an agricultural expert here. He disagreed with that, but go ahead.
And let me tell you why I actually disagree. Anthony, why do you take mechanized farming to Liberia when you're not able to figure out shifting cultivation that have fed our people for over how many hundred years? You know that despite shifting cultivation in Liberia, right? Our country greenery and forest has still been reserved because of the practices in shifting cultivation. Take mechanized farming to Liberia. Clear out 10,000 acres of property immediately, not because you want to feed the people of the country, but because you want to generate produce to increase commercial activity by exporting food overseas. Why does Liberia need mechanized farming when shifting cultivation has been self-sufficient? Let's be honest, Anthony.
Well, maybe that is why we're not producing now. We're talking about productivity now.
So productivity at the destruction of the natural rainforest, productivity at the destruction of wiping up the entire climate condition in the country. Is that what we want? Do we want to start growing GMO foods? Mechanized farming reduces the quality of foods. We know that because they are trying to produce as much as possible. What we produce in Liberia, when you leave from here, when you eat plum in America, Anthony, you go to Liberia and eat plum. You don't tell the difference?
No, that one is you can't.
But let me ask you, why would we be jumping over what is the only way you do, Anthony, that the thing Liberia has done has damaged us? We always replacing. You don't replace. We need to invest, grow, shifting cultivation, because first of all, Anthony, we don't have the markets in Liberia. We don't have the markets for mechanized farming. If you overproduce in Liberia, you get surplus, the value drop. People will say, oh, export it or whatever. Yeah, that's a wet dream. That's a long dream. My argument is, right now, we don't need, what we need in Liberia is doubling down the investment in agriculture to elevate shifting cultivation to a place where our people got access to markets. When they harvest those things, the roads are good. They got access to electricity to store that food. They got access to industry that can turn the vegetable into juice. Let's do that. When we do that, you know what it will do? It will create the need and demand. When it creates the demand, then we can start looking at best practices in mechanized farming.
So talking about the solutions on our feet and looking at our young people, you cited an example about young Nigerians in Nigeria that were able to attract Facebook, that is a multi-billion-dollar investment right now as we speak. And talking about the Facebook itself, it was education through the use of internet that made this young man a billionaire today. And it was not diamond, it was not gold, it was not anything. It was just idea, focusing this young man idea that you can find solution with the ABC we are teaching you right here in the classroom with this technology. So how do we find such a solution using our young people right on our feet without going to America or Europe or Canada where you are?
The first thing is to organize. our economy. Let me give you an example I was saying, right? Like I said, in real market, where our wheelbarrow boys and other than the hustling. Some of those kids are serial entrepreneurs. They fed entire families on a wheelbarrow market for the last 5 years. Some of them are. We need to organize those marketplaces. You know why nobody know what happened in real market? Because nobody organized it. You know why people can know when one little boy in Nigeria build a small cardboard cartoon house somewhere, before you know it can be trending on the internet, people sharing one little boy from Tanzania or South Africa or Nigeria. You know why? Because they've organized those places that they are able to elevate the data of what's happening there. Anthony, I ask you right now, what is the percentage of economic activity in real market or Douala market, and what does it contribute to the Liberian economy? No one knows. Not even President Weah. But guess what? That is where 75% of our people go to transact businesses. That is where the little boy who might be able to build a replica of an aeroplane from his ingenuity in building cartoons, that's where it happens. But guess where? It ends up, nobody even see picture of it. Nobody even knows what to do. So what we need to do is to organize these marketplaces. When we organize it, you know what will happen? They did a World Bank and they said they want to go inspect some of the economic hubs of Liberia. You know what we're telling them? The real market. Right now, you can't go real market. So the information filtering, the productivity filtering from over there will be elevated. That what happens in real market, the ingenuity or the old man there or the papi or the young boy there, we will see it. But number two, Anthony, we need to start letting our children know that they don't need to have sophisticated laptops and computers before them to do these things. That a new drive we're doing. Everybody, the children got to get computer education before. No, that's not true. Great. If you get computer education, that is great. But even as I said to you, go to the villages, Anthony, when you see some of the things these children do, right, to keep it running. But what we've done, we've resolved that everything we need must come from outside. So the only way we can do it when we start to look inward, where we are looking for, how come that little boot over there, that guy got over there, has managed to be surviving, that he can save the whole community on day. Let me talk to that young boy over there. Rather than saying we need a trainer from Washington, D.C. to come train our young people on entrepreneurship. Are you kidding me? Go see serial entrepreneurs in real market. What are you talking about?
Wow. Amazing. Leo, time is our enemy. I can keep asking questions.
I would like to close on
that's what I always do. Yeah, but I have a question here. You ended with the opposition community.
Yeah.
You said, look, we can say all we want about Josh Weah. The opposition that want to take over from him, even their financial report, we don't know. They can't even show it. They are not an example of the change they preach. Talk to me. How can they be an example that they are not? And what is the danger in their failure to be example?
Let me take it even one step further. All the opposition in Liberia call our young people their militants. I beg all of you watching today, for the sake of transparency, please take the dictionary, since it is an English word, and define the word militant. And tell me if there is any positive connotation being placed on someone who is not a military, personnel. If you're not a trained military in an organized military, that you are a militant. That is the first failure. Because if the vision of our opposition political parties, and all of them, including the ruling party too, if their vision is to see our young people become more militants and wear military regalias and sing songs behind them, because we know what the implication is in Liberia when they say you're a militant of the party, right?
Yeah.
Where are the political parties' efforts in training the next best speech writers, the next best policy thinkers, the next best debaters, the next best organizers and mobilizers, the next best fundraisers? Instead of having our young people from morning to evening at these political party headquarters singing songs and calling themselves militants. But let me come down to what I said. Look, they say any organization, if you want to know if it's properly run or properly governed and managed, just dig deep into the financial accounts. You actually, in these political parties, by the way, they got accountants.
Before you continue, please read the definition of the
militant.
There.
Militant, combative and aggressive in support of a political or social cause, and typically favoring extreme, violent, or confrontational methods. Is this what we want to be training our young people to become? And you can admit, Anthony, all of them call young people of Liberia militants.
Yeah, they are militant.
That's what they do. Is this the breed of people you're raising? Number two, when I came to the financial report issue, Anthony, all these political parties got some renowned accountants, renowned lawyers in there. Since I was born, Anthony, I'm still searching for any political party in Liberia audited financial report. So let me ask you, If you cannot organize, because everybody criticizes President, we are government, right, of corruption.
Right.
Everybody criticizes of lack of accountability, and even say some of their ministries are not audited, right? Or all of that stuff. But you are saying you are even more competent and capable of delivering the things for which you are criticizing him for, right? Agree. What's the best place to actually demonstrate that? Isn't that within a small political party that you're running? You know what happened after President Weah's State of the Nation address? All the political parties that came out to respond start by saying, here is the state of our financial status in the first place. Our party raised $200,000 this year, and here are the things we were able to do to the benefit of our Liberian people. Then they go to the point of saying how they're using their resources to contribute to the Liberian economy because of the failure of the Liberian government. To say because the Liberian government has failed, our party raised $300,000 this year, and with this $300,000, we were able to pay our staff, but we're also able to contribute to the Liberian economy because the government has failed in this area. So in our own little way, and this is what we will do when we become president or so. I don't see it. I mean, I may be wrong. Somebody please help me here. You can't tell us, say, we should change one government like we've always done, only because our government is bad. No. Tell us, before we change one are bad, you need to show the Liberian people one that's better. As I speak to you today, we are 1.5 to 2 years away from elections, right? Nobody still know yet what other opposition party will do. Some of them have talked about raising revenue, increasing this or whatever. At least today, as Sana in my own say, reality of the state address, I gave you the places the money will come from. Right. I'm able to point to you to say, we can debate whether we're happy or not, right? But watch me develop. At least you can go there and see where I'm saying, oh, there be more, I may woman do this. I'm telling you, I can increase the budget by $100 million to be able to fund these activities that I'm listening to you. Show me one. We got to get serious. We got to move from the politics of showing us how bad the situation is to showing us what is a better way of doing it.
Thank you so very much. We'll take a short break, folks. When we come back, we'll read your comments. Leo will respond, and then we will take leave of you. A short break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. Leo, take note. Let me read as many as I can, and then you can respond. Milfi Deco, I get jealous every time I hear you speak Pele the way you do, and yet speak English. I mean, to speak English very well too. Let's hear from Humphrey Jabate. I like your program, but today's schedule isn't best for me. African Nation.
I know, right? You can watch it after.
You can watch it after. This is my good friend Emmanuel K. Ure. I believe you know Dr. Ure. Excellent motivation. Dr. Ure writes. Let's hear from Joe. Joe writes. That's Joe Colley. I don't know what he's saying here. I'm speechless in totality tonight, senior brother. You always and have just pinpointed most of the hittable issue of our common denominator, Mama Liberia. Thank you, brother. He writes. Let's hear from Prince. Prince writes, kudos to you, Leo. I will have my head hunters contact you. Well, they will contact you. Let's hear from Chairman George Toto. The credit goes to the Liberian people for maintaining peace. Maintaining the peace, he said. Change comes by, and some folks are willing to do whatever it takes to hold on to power. Let's hear from Sister Musu. She writes, totally agree, Leo. Our systems are deeply aligned with Western ways of doing things. You know, and she is agreeing with you that is the problem. We need to change that. Let's hear from Prince again. That was a great contradiction, calling Liberia Little America, but refusing to do what America is doing to make the great nation it is. For example, why can't we copy the federal government system? Because some folks love centralized power and wealth, he writes. Let's hear from, is that Julia? Yeah, Julia, right. This is my first time to listen to you, Leo, but you are the first reasonable Liberian I have listened to for many years. Believe me, my brother, you said the truth. Let's hear from Clarence. Clarence writes, Liberia was established by people who could not speak any of the local languages. Maybe Deco comes by, my man, I thought you say you're going to watch the game. But Leo, don't you think that tourism gets devalued just for the look at the trash in Monrovia and its surrounding? He's asking a question there. Yeah, for Francis D. Thanks, Leo. You are a gifted person. Thanks for all that you bring to the table for our country, Liberia. God bless you and our leaders. See reason. That's how he put it there. But yeah, from Roof, right? So true. The villages are kept so clean. They sweep that around, okay, until you can find a safety pin when it drops. Okay, so she's saying that the villages are clean, the people sweep around till when you drop something like a pin, you will see it. And then talking about Liberian Dream, Prince again, the Liberian Dream currently is to work in government. That is the Liberian Dream for some people, according to Prince. Let's hear from Will joining us from YouTube there. Based on the second and third points Leo made, I will pay a diaspora tax. I think what might go wrong? I mean, what might worry most people? Okay, what worry most people is how Liberian government will use such revenue. So he's talking about how will the government use the money I can pay. Musu again, I would rather say food production, farming process, etc. She writes. That is Francis D comes by. That is very true. I gave you an example. The line in the USA is by far sour, maybe meant to say sour than the ones in Liberia. Let's hear from Cecilia Yakpawulo. Thank you, Leo. Keep speaking to Liberian people and they will understand one day. So she's saying, don't stop, Leo. One day our people will hear the message. Let's hear from Emmanuel. We need to be real to ourselves and our nation. Let's hear from Lawrence Power. Great point, my brother. These people are no different from the people in power. And the last one comes from Marie Quade. No need to tell us your personal contribution that you send.
I think she said no. You need to tell us your personal. What she's trying to say?
Oh, okay. No need. Okay. Yeah. No need to tell us your personal contribution that you send to the opposition. Let's leave Marie there. She's too political because you are trying to say that the opposition is the one. The Liberian people paying their taxes. I don't know.
They can enjoy when you're criticizing the government, but then
when you criticize the government, they like it. So, Leo, a few comments there. Like, your response, please.
So quickly, I would say the person who thought about first of all that the people who founded Liberia could not speak local languages. That is one of the miseducation and lies we've been told that the establishment of Liberia was doing only by those who came from America. When in fact, what is now Liberia were all provinces. And for those provinces to be brought together, they were all governed by local chiefs, right? And local tribes people. The settlers had to negotiate with these people to get all of them to come together under a country called Liberia. So if you want to tell me only the people who could speak English are organized Liberia, it is not true. Because even the place called Liberia, when they organized it, majority of the people who lived there were not English speakers. They were native speakers. Instead, we should be saying they were marginalized in the process. They were marginalized and not giving their due rewards as they should have been. And somebody talk about diaspora tax as well and how the government will use it. So is it fair now for the people in Liberia who live in there, who pay taxes too, and have to fight to hold the government feet to the fire? It's the same thing. You don't deny your responsibility because you say the government will be corrupt. The countries we live in, Anthony, whether you elect the government that in power or not, you must pay your taxes. When Donald Trump came to power, you know how many people hated Donald Trump guts and the kind of corrupt did they stop paying their taxes? No. They paid their taxes and they held their government feet to the fire because they earned that right. So when you pay your taxes, you got a voice in the legislature, right? In the Senate, in the legislature. You pay your taxes, you have the right, if your government is spending it incorrectly, to chastise them. But right now, we chastise the government, but we won't pay taxes. So I don't think that argument is valid because every country you live in, whether you like it or not, even in communist countries, when they say you will pay tax, you will pay tax. You don't have a choice. So let's take the same way. But to everybody, especially people who might disagree with me on mechanized farming, right? We in America here, we complain about eating the junk food that making all of our fat being produced by mechanized farming because of how unhealthy it is. But then we make the same argument. Anthony, we were in LIB, the kind of eating we used to do and the hours we used to eat. Did you see people, did you see us getting that obese?
Especially for boys.
For boys. It was because it was a balanced diet, and besides that, the quality of the food that we were eating. Here to eat well from mechanized farming, you got to go buy organic, and you know the price of organic versus the normal foods. But then we arguing that at the same thing we might take and carrot instead of saying the way we manage to be producing such high quality food, let's build on it, right? Let's continue. If it becomes a new system of mechanized farming, hallelujah. And people think when they say mechanized farming, it means you might have you might bring tractors to the place that it be there. No. It includes the type of seeds you use because you want to mass produce. So you need to have these GMO seeds that you can plant and corn today, Anthony. In 2 weeks, the corn ready. You plant orange today, you harvest it tomorrow. How does that make any sense? That's mechanized farming. And I argue it would be a destruction of the Liberian agriculture sector to borrow mechanized farming and just replace the Liberian agriculture sector with some kind of foreign type of farming, kill all of our high quality seeds, destroy all of our high quality views and growth, and start to destroy our land, our rainforest, only because we want to start eating like the thing that people can eat in America and take the same health challenges that they have here. But to close, everybody, thank you for listening. And those of you who agree, I respect your disagreement. These are just my ideas and my suggestions. I'm not saying they are Bible. So we will continue to sharpen the argument. I hope we can be making these type of arguments rather than fighting over who's a militant and who's not.
And Leo, please close with that. Brother Leo, will you accept the opportunity to serve as the next president if given the opportunity to help Liberia? That you're troubled there?
No, I don't think so, because the next election in 2023, let's be honest, I don't even believe any of the people running right now, if we should go by the competence and quality of people who should be presidents, are prepared. So it would be a fool's errand for me to sit down 1 year to the election or 2 years to the election and say, oh, because the people petition me, so I'll go be president tomorrow. To be president, it has to be a 10-year preparation. You need to do all of the things that you say you would do and demonstrate it. So if I'm prepared, if it is something I consider, I would need at least 8 to 10 years of preparation to show the quality of what I can produce. Because the type of planes you need, Anthony, they're not plane you can create. The thing that men can do, just take paper like we saw with the Propo Agenda for Progress and Development Projects, right? You sit down on there, you develop these random things, and then now
the CPP framework, right?
Or the CPP framework. These things you need a 10-year vision. You need 10 years to properly develop a platform, a vision, so that when you bring that vision, you would have tested it, and you would have evaluated it and know that you can deliver. So trust me, the day you hear say, if it ever happened, Leo Johnson say he want to be president for Liberia, it will come from a place of years of preparation, not just on paper. You would have seen some of those results, not just on the scale, because I'm not government, but you would have you will see my color throwing hand. The better people say black people no one got cool tall, right? So you see my color throwing hands, be like, yeah, they man say he want to brush that big bush over there. I believe it because I saw how he brushed the other farm over there. That would be my response.
Leo, thank you so very much, folks. In cyberspace, this is how we'll come to the end of yet another edition of the Liberian Dream, always hosted here by Focus on Liberia with Leo Johnson. Yeah, I focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Folks, thank you for your contribution. We appreciate you coming always. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will appreciate that. Leo, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, folks.
We are Liberian.